Hi guys, welcome to today's episode of Bible in a Year, and I'm quite excited because Genesis is coming to an end. We're in the final five chapters of Genesis. Now, in Genesis chapter 46, we see Jacob going to Egypt, where to meet Joseph, his son. Now, before he goes to Egypt to have the reunion with his son, we see in the beginning of the chapter, God tells Jacob that I am your God, I am your father, the God of your father, and yours also. So do not be afraid to go to Egypt. And then we see later part of that chapter where he just enumerates the people that went with Jacob to Egypt. And then Jacob settles in Goshen, where he tells Judah to go and bring forth Joseph to meet him. And then they met each other and they were happy. So Joseph tells his brother, oh, when Pharaoh asks you, what do you do? Tell them you are shepherds, because you know that you feed life. Your occupation has been livestock with your youth, even till now. That's ended the chapter of 46. Now 47 sees Joseph meeting with Pharaoh, and they have this conversation where you're trying to meet the father of the boy that has been helping you so far. That happened, and then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and all of that. Now, in the later part of that chapter, the Bible tells us that Joseph deals with famine of Egypt, where he has gathered this wisdom that he will use to continue, the plentiful years that Pharaoh had in his dream, and then the years of famine. So we see the wisdom of God in his life in that part, and then the later part of that chapter, we see Jacob asking Joseph to vow to him that when he dies, he should not be buried in Egypt. Now, chapter 47 goes that, and then chapter 48 sees Jacob blessing the sons of Joseph. Now, the sons of Joseph are Manasseh and Ephraim. Now, Manasseh is the first child, and then Ephraim is the last child, the second child. Now, in that chapter, we see Joseph trying to get Jacob to bless the first child first. However, Jacob switched his hand and put his right hand on Ephraim and then put his left hand on Manasseh. And then he told Jacob, his father, Joseph told Jacob, his father, that, oh, you made a mistake, Pops. I think you're supposed to put your right hand on the first child. And then Jacob says, no, I know what I'm doing. This is what it's going to be like. And then Israel said to Joseph, behold, I'm dying, but God will be with you, and blesses Joseph ever still. Now, in chapter 49, we see Jacob's last words to his sons. So Jacob blesses the sons that he had, 12 sons that he has. Now, what interesting part of that chapter, besides the fact that he blesses them, there's a particular part, chapter 2, 49 chapter 2, that says, gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Now, I'm speaking from NKJV. So he says, gather together and hear, you sons of Israel, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Now, I want you to understand the context. It's amazing how Bible, teaches us these things. I want you to understand the concept. Jacob was not the blessed person that God blessed. It was Israel, right? Because when Jacob had that wrestle with the angel of God, he changed his name. So that was the encounter that changed his name. Now, anybody that encounters Israel encounters blessing. So he tells the sons of Jacob, come, you who I birthed by my old self, now I'm going to bring you to a promise of Israel. He says, gather and hear. He did not say you should hear your old past. He said, gather together and hear. It means you can hear something but not listen, not adhere to it. And he says, listen to your father, Israel. Listen to your father. It means you can be hearing the things of the past, but the things that you should hold dear, that you should adhere to, are the ones of your future, the promises that God has given to you. So I want you to come and dwell in that promise that God has given to me. So he blesses them, and then the later part of that chapter says Jacob's death. And then Jacob had finished commanding his sons of what he was supposed to do, and then he drew it into the bed and then breathed his last. And he was gathered to his people. So chapter 50, the last chapter of Genesis, says Joseph mourning, and Pharaoh tells Joseph, go and bury your father. And it's interesting that as at the later part of that chapter, the brothers of Joseph thought that he was going to abandon them, thought that he was going to neglect them. Now that the thing that was holding him bound to them, what they thought was holding him bound to them, was their father. And he tells them, don't do that. We are not here because of my father alone. Yes, but then that is not going to happen. The later part of that chapter sees the death of Joseph. Then Joseph took an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from me. And then Joseph died, being 110 years old, and embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. Now, the interesting part, or the part that gave me an understanding here, is Genesis chapter 48, where Jacob was about to bless the sons of Joseph. Now, one thing I understand here is, like I keep saying, patterns. But one thing that is very sure here is, somebody cannot give what he does not have. what has enumerated, what the pattern that Jacob knows is the concept of giving favor to whom God has given favor to, even if he is not his birthright. So it is very important that you understand patterns, because patterns help you with principle. Now, the principle Jacob applied was the principle he knew how he used how he got his own blessing. So he used the principle, albeit Ephraim did not do anything cheating or anything, but he knows the principle of giving the birthright to another person. Albeit it might not necessarily be the intent, but you have to understand patterns. When you understand patterns, you understand the principle that helps in excelling in those patterns of your life, either to conquer it or to make it evident or to make it manifest in your life. I hope you are as excited as I am to get into Exodus. Now we're going to be getting Exodus, and it's going to be very interesting. Hope you get an understanding. See you next episode. Bye.